I was forced to work really early due to financial means, but I think I was also driven. I wanted to contribute, and I actually had 2 jobs. And
Welcome to the Sinclair Podcast, where we share real-world experiences, wisdom, and the honest struggles of entrepreneurs to help you navigate and scale your business with confidence.
Prashant, I can't believe that I'm going to start over.
Yeah.
See,
it's all good.
Do that. Yeah. Prashant, thanks so much for coming on today. I appreciate you making the trip down. I mean, you and I met really just last year, but you guys have been an incredible client of Brand Boulevard. I think, since we started, and Ellen, I started working with her in like 2005, I think. Yeah. So we go way back. She's been putting up with me and us for a long time. So thank you on that behalf.
I got to say that I was inspired to meet you as well. I think that we just briefly met that one moment, and you kind of feed off people's energy. And I think that day, I think you were just literally for a few minutes stepped in and just said hello. And I think I just really appreciate that connection. And then I think hence why we're here.
Yeah, for sure. The sort of the call we had leading up. I mean, I love when I found out right away you're in YPO. Yes. I was in EO, and that code of conduct. It's like, hey, we can talk about anything, and I think that's so cool. Why don't we start there? Tell me about your YPO experience. How long have you been in it?
Yeah, so maybe I'll step back. Originally from the West Coast.
Okay.
Moved from BC 6 years ago. Maybe 7 now. And, I think that I was blessed with the experiences, the scars, the learnings of COVID. Yeah. And then having a cyber incident. But ultimately, it was primarily my life was around my family and work. And I didn't really have an outlet for myself. And I wanted to do nothing to do with the field I'm in, and meet people. And I'd heard that I was eligible being a young head of function or president, and YPO has some minimum requirements, and I met those requirements, and it was just an opportunity to just better myself and meet good people. And once you understand the commitment that it takes to develop yourself, but also be vulnerable, whether it's YPO, whether it's tech or any other group, they have a common thread. That you come in with the right mindset. And with that, I had that opportunity and just blessed to meet really great people, part of our chapter, and Great Lakes, shout out.
Love it.
And, essentially that journey began with just, essentially being a part of this group that exposes you to great education, a great experience with your own forum, which is your group. And it's an opportunity for you to work on yourself. In all aspects of yourself, we call it jars of your life. Yeah. Whether that's professional, personal, family, whatever that might be for you. But it's been a wonderful experience, and I feel like that's just one part of the journey that I've been on here in Toronto.
That's awesome. Yeah. Did you join an existing forum group?
Yes, there was an existing. There were a few members that were leaving. And we were 2 members that joined at one point with this forum, and then another added member shortly after. So we're a team of 6.
Oh, that's awesome!
And really tight group.
How was it integrating? Because it takes a while, especially if you haven't come from this sort of like, we're going to talk about everything.
Yeah.
The walls come down, the vulnerability goes up.
Yeah, Chris, I would say that's what I loved the most, and I think I've always felt a bit of uniqueness about myself, that I was quite comfortable being vulnerable, being emotional. And that wasn't something that I've seen with other men. And so with YPO, it's both men and women. And that's sort of the expectation. And so when you're walking into a group where the expectation is to be open-minded and well-intended, and taking or checking your ego aside, it was really, really foreign. And then you immerse yourself, and then quickly you're learning that your challenges that you have, while they might be different, are very similar to other individuals who are head of functions, because it's lonely. And so I think that vulnerability quickly creates trust and a bond.
That's awesome. I think it's an incredible experience. I think I told you I had a number of years in EO, and we still have sort of a rogue form group, and it is the most incredible. Yeah, we're every maybe 6-8 weeks, but that group is so safe and so
I've heard
awesome.
That. You
can,
it's rogue and have your own group, but it tells you it's meaningful.
Absolutely. No, everyone got a lot from that. So let's go back to BC. Give me the short notes on like growing up. What was life like with you, with family?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a cool story. So while my name is Prashant here today, my birth name wasn't.
Really?
My birth name was Peter. And so I was born in a place called Kitimat, BC. And Kitimat is about 18 hours north of Vancouver driving.
Oh, wow.
So just south of Alaska. And my parents wanted to have an Indian name, but they felt being in a very small Canadian town that it would be more appropriate to assimilate to the Canadian culture. So I was Peter and my brother was Philip. And with Indian culture, ultimately, their names are connected to a cultural belief or astrology for those that believe in it, and ultimately was born Prashant a few years later. My mom ultimately wanted that. She was the one proponent to having that Indian culture within our own name. And so I bring that up because I think that sort of speaks to my upbringing of a small town, a lot of cultures that were in this small town, driven by, either a pulp mill or, in this case, my dad worked for Alcan Aluminum. That's what brought him there in the 60s.
Okay.
And lived there for about 10 years of my life. And so Peter became Prashant, roughly about till 8 years old. And then Peter was actually taken away because most teachers wouldn't say Prashant. They would say Peter when my name was, Peter was made a middle name. So ultimately, Peter was removed, and Prashant was fully my first name. And a bit of sad story, but I think everybody has a colorful past. I moved from Kitimat to Vancouver roughly when I was about 11. My mom had cancer. And so we had to have a further treatment in Vancouver, and then we fully moved to Vancouver. And then she later passed 2 years later, but abruptly leaving from a small town to a big city is a massive change,
Huge change.
For anybody, especially for a young child. But certainly I feel like that really helped me develop and mature at a very young age, moving from a small town to a big city. What's crazy about it is most people wouldn't think about it, but I went through this. There wasn't a McDonald's in Kitimat. There wasn't a tower.
You're just like eyes open.
Yeah,
wow.
There was nothing.
Yeah.
Then you go to Vancouver, and then it's just massive. It's just overwhelming. But I love my experience in a small town. You grow up with an open door policy. You could just show up to people's houses, have dinner, sleepovers, played hockey on the street. I love my experience living in a small town and equally living in a bigger city, but it sort of shaped who I am to where I am today.
So, I mean, that's a lot to take as a young boy, right? So you and your brother and your dad, I mean, what were some of the, from such a tragedy, what were some of the gifts that you guys got from the passing of your mom?
Yeah, I would say a couple gifts. I mean, there's lots of gifts, but one of them I'd call out was I think she remains with us as far as her own personality, her characteristics, her strength. Number two, I'd say ultimately, that resilience and adaptability is something that we all have to manage. Whether it's a losing of a parent, God forbid, or a family member or extended friend.
Yeah.
I think we're all going to have these experiences. I think we have choices in our life to maneuver these challenges. I guess the gift that I had is I had the ability to just adapt and move through a traumatic experience. I would say my superpower is also a challenge that I have to deal with. My superpower is, my ability to just think positively and move forward. But with that, when you think positively and you're moving forward, you almost forget to slow down and to understand and unpack your own emotions. So I think that was something that I took away, was help me through that process, was to think positively and control my own destiny. But today I realize is unpacking that emotion, slowing down is valid. It's needed, and that in itself can allow you to propel through the challenges that you face in life.
Yeah, incredible awareness, and I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
What were some of the values you guys grew up like, as a family? It was this. We stand for X.
Yeah, I would say, it was clear up until 10.
Yeah.
And then it was not clear after 10. Because
and maybe
it was
spoken or unspoken, right?
Yeah,
It's what you see.
I would say spoken was, we were very family oriented. A lot of different cultures within Kitimat, Portuguese, Italian. We kind of grew up in a community, and everybody got along, and very family oriented. But we, as far as like, being responsible, having good grades, providing community support, all of those things were part of our DNA and are expected. And to some degree, we were held accountable. Like my parents were very strict and conservative. I wasn't the studious kid. I wasn't getting straight A's, so that was always something of an issue.
Yeah.
But after 10, I will be honest, it was my dad, my brother, and I. Single dad, and we were living a different life.
For sure.
It was survival to fittest. I mean, we were just trying to get by. And over the teens, we found our rhythm. My dad got remarried, and I would say overall, I think that the values were really centered around just supporting one another, and it was really about just understanding how we can financially support each other. Emotionally, I would say, was not something we were good at. Culturally, Indian culture, it's not something that they forwardly say, I love you, or they embrace with hugs. Now, some families do that, not a lot. And my upbringing was more, conservative in that way.
Shown in a different way.
Yeah, just shown in a different way. Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah.
So take me through, I always like to ask, first job, like what was the first job? And then let's go to the worst job, sort of, teen years or.
I would say, again, I was forced to work really early due to financial means, but I think I was also driven. I wanted to contribute. And I actually had 2 jobs, and I vividly remember them, quite opposing. I am not mechanically inclined. I'm not, these hands
I like
not
where
meant
this is going.
to build anything. But my first job was through a job board, and it was a dock that we were grinding the rust off the dock, the cylinders that hold up a massive dock. And it was destined to go to the Queen Charlottes, and they had boats that were meant for Queen Charlottes as well. But my job was given, I don't know what the size of the cylinder was, but like a grinder to remove.
That's like intense rust. Labor. Yeah.
Yeah. That was my entire summer job. So every day I'd ride over with my bike over the bridge in New Westminster, and I would work 8 hours a day, and we would do conveyor belts. I would do grinding. And then at the same time, I also got a job at A&W for 2 weeks, and what we called P&E or C&E, the equivalent.
Okay, yeah.
I was a ride operator, and I quickly got promoted to being the ride that goes round and round with the music and the DJ. So I was that. I was the guy with the DJ. So
you were the cool guy.
Yeah,
right?
I was. I had a certain voice that you had to carry to kind of excite the crowd, and just as much I was grinding rust over that summer. So those are my 2 jobs that I had at the same time. Which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, for sure. They teach you a lot, right? Humbling.
Yeah, and really different. Like one was building a confidence around your ability to communicate and interact with people at a very young age, and then on the other side, the value of money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So through and through, you've had a really extensive sales background, and that's really been a lot of your journey. Talk to me about the first sort of, or the first formal sales role you had.
Yeah, I would say this wasn't the first, formal. I lasted about 4 hours. It was selling magazines.
Come on.
Madeleine magazines. I vividly remember going to a second floor. It was some shady place where it was out of a paper. I got a job, and I actually didn't get paid. It was 100% commission. At the end of the day, I just realized this is not for me.
Sure.
So that was my first sales position, and then followed by I did a sales program. I went to BCIT. I was a technical sales and marketing program, and during the summer, I actually worked for Kraft Foods, and I was a merchandiser. And then at the end of that year, I ended up being a food brokerage rep in sales. So very gifted, very, very grateful for that opportunity, and great owner. And I was literally selling sauces, spices to restaurants, to chefs, to hotels. And that was my first formal sales position that I can vividly remember. Yeah.
That's cool. I appreciate you sharing.
But yeah, I'm sales hunter, a street sales upbringing background that got me to where I am today.
So, you've got a ton of drive. Obviously, along the way, there was so many moments where it wasn't going to be the last stop for you.
Yeah.
Tell me how you got in your industry now.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting comment you just said, that it wasn't going to be the last stop. And I think I would say I'd pause there for a second, because I've realized later in my life some key aspects of what makes who I am. And one of which I've realized is being all in. And at a young age, I didn't think about the next job or the next job. And I think a lot of younger people today can't sit still. They can't, they can't commit. And so I bring that up because I was consistently loyal up until a point where, I realized that I wasn't gonna. It was either a values misalignment or it was just not the right place for long term. And so I bring that up because essentially that's why I consistently stayed at a lot of my sales jobs for longer than 3, 4, but more like 5 years.
Yeah.
That was my itch. After 5 years, essentially, what would happen.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So tell me about Henry Schein, your first experience, first role there, and sort of.
Yeah. How I got there. Yeah. So what got me into healthcare was I left a company called Diageo. Diageo is a Smirnoff, Guinness, Bailey's adult beverage organization. Loved it. Did it for 5 years.
Huge global company too.
Very big.
Right?
I was key accounts, a lot of the clubs and hotels. I got to a point where I couldn't move up anymore, and I'd have to move to Toronto. So I decided to leave the organization, and I moved to a root canal specialist role for dental. I was there for 5 years, 2 of which were a rep role, and then the 3 were a country leader role. And my long answer to your question is that's what brought me to Henry Schein. I got to a place where innovation wasn't happening in that previous organization, and I was looking for something that would allow me to stay home because I had my daughter. And Schein, or Henry Schein, is where I work today. And they had a regional sales manager position posted, and their vice president of sales reached out and asked essentially if I was interested in that position.
So you weren't even looking.
I literally was not looking, but I was also open-minded at that moment because I was ready to consider options. And it was just a perfect timing. And moving from a country role to a regional role, there was a bit of an ego check. But I loved that opportunity because I had expanded responsibilities of a number of people that were reporting into me, and allowed me to stay home. And so,
how old was your daughter at this point?
She's 14 years old.
Yeah.
So
at that time, she
was I think either 1 or 2 at that time. And so Henry Schein was a regional role. We were number 2, number 3 of the options in the distribution business in BC. So we weren't number 1 in that market. And we have an amazing British Columbia team that has been there since then. But it evolved, that branch. But we soon became, and still continue to be, a very strong number 2 in that market, and touching almost number 1. And I love that experience. I learned that how important you can't have sales without operations. And essentially, if you understand the connection between the two and how inside team members play a role in our business, technical service, the technicians that repair the equipment in the dental office, how they play a role within the dental clinic, it is so important to link the two together and to create a one-team mentality. And that's how we actually spoke to our doctors, taking a team approach to selling. And through consistency and raising our brand and being professional and ethical, we were able to grow our share. So love my experience there. And I went from a sales manager to a branch manager to director of sales, and then eventually moved to Toronto as the VP 6 or so years ago.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's been an amazing ride. Great company.
And congratulations on your most recent promotion. I mean, that's really exciting. Tell me more about that, going from CEO of Canada to now CEO of the Americas less US.
Yes. So officially, I'm the president.
President, sorry.
Yeah. But it's often quoted that way that the head of function can be one. But I'm the president of Henry Schein Canada, and I recently got promoted to president of Americas ex-US. And so what does that mean? That means that I still have responsibilities for Henry Schein Canada. And I have all of Latin America, which is primarily Brazil. And I have the global lab business, which is mainly in the US. And these two business units are extremely important to our business in two different ways. One is obviously geographical expansion, but the other one is connected to digital workflow and the manufacturing side of dentistry, which not everybody understands, but it's the laboratory side. But really cool stuff, great people, great leadership. And so I have expanded responsibility of those two areas that are additional to Canada. And just excited for a change, just to add on what I've been a part of and to be a part of this journey about it, just learning. And I think that's the most important piece for me is what can I learn from their regions and how can they help Canada, and vice versa, how can Canada help what's happening here and share learnings with the Brazilian and the lab market there.
You're managing a lot of revenue and a lot of people.
Yes.
When you look back 15 years, ish to starting this role, did you ever think this was where you might land?
You know what? I would never have expected that I would get to this place where it's beyond Canada. Did I think that I would be running a business or having some sort of business leadership role? Yeah, I did. But I never imagined that Peter, 18 hours north from Kitimat, is going to be in Toronto and being a part of an organization that's in the Fortune 200 on the NASDAQ.
It's incredible.
No, so I didn't know.
Tell you, your mom would be so damn proud of you.
Yeah, she would be. She would be.
It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you describe your type of leadership? What are your leadership qualities or skills? What do you stand for as a leader?
Yeah, I find myself best in an environment where I'm actually letting the team run. And I'm looking for that team to be their best version of themselves. And I referenced being all in. And I think I've realized that that type of environment is best suited for me, where my team feels they're empowered and able to execute on our strategic plan and their own tactical plan. And I find that I also know my personality, that I do like to and can get into the weeds. And I would say how I manage that myself is being having the right tension between strategic and tactical. And you need to know as a leader when the team needs you and when you need to get into the details to support them. And that means you actually need to be involved. But there are also times where you need to be removed and allow them to be successful. Oftentimes when individuals are not all in, I probably don't show up the best.
What's that look like for direct reports for you?
I think they would say I get really involved and
rolling up the sleeves.
Yeah, I roll up. Yeah, I'm involved and probably too involved. And I think that I recognize the importance of having a healthy balance. But I think we have an amazing team in Canada, and now with Brazil and the lab business, it's an opportunity for us to even think about why not post-COVID, why not share talent? Allow them to have opportunities that are remote. And so that's something that I'm thinking about when I think about my role today and how it's expanding, is just provide that opportunity, just like I've been given that opportunity within the organization. So I see a bright future for a lot of people.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
What are some of the toughest decisions that you've made in your career when you look back?
Yeah, I would say, managing through COVID, as a young leader, had no idea the magnitude of what was happening. And I think the challenging time was, we talked about my personality and my leadership style. When there is chaos, leaders show up in different ways. And as a young leader, I wanted to get into the weeds and the details when at that moment it was about bringing the team together. And we did bring the team together, but I caught myself in that challenge of perhaps not trusting the team enough And there were a few moments where that happened early, and we corrected that through open dialogue. But because there was so much happening at one time, it was our suppliers not being able to provide product to us. It was our stakeholders, like our clinicians, who relied on us, who expected us to deliver. We're the largest distributor in dental.
Yeah.
And
I mean, your clients shut down too, right?
Yes.
I mean, they were shut down for a few months, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were all closed, and then we were back open again. But I think that challenge of like everybody coming to you and relying on you, and you feeling like you need to be a part of everything. And so I feel like there was a big learning from there, that in those moments, sometimes just breathing and pausing and asking for guidance from others is pretty powerful. But that means checking your ego at the door. So I would say that was something that I took away as a challenge, but also an opportunity for me to work on.
Knowing you, I know you do this, but how does one create that safe environment, almost like that EO/YPO space for your team to be able to call you out in a safe way? Because that's not for every leader.
I think I welcome it. I don't think that, if I'm being honest, it's always there as an opportunity. But I'm open, absolutely, to that opportunity to have those kind of conversations. And I think through maturity, through space, you can provide those lenses and opportunity for others to contribute their point of view. And we're going through that. We went through that with cyber incident in Canada last year. So absolutely, having them play a role in providing guidance and feedback for myself and for the organization. An example of where we do that at Henry Schein quite regularly is through 360 degree feedback. And I use that as a tool in a positive way, not in a way that is punitive. So generally every year we'll have all of us do our 360 where everybody provides feedback. And so I do it myself as well. So I've had that at least 3 times in my role.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. It's again, I love that quality leadership, and I think your team, I know how much they would appreciate that too.
Yeah.
How much has your industry changed? Because everyone did since COVID. How did that impact Henry Schein in Canada? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think many organizations changed with price transparency, the reliance on e-commerce versus being in person. I think those two were accelerated in our industry. And the third was always there, is this consolidation that's happening in healthcare, which has happened in many different industries. And as far as how we're working through it, Henry Schein is always evolving and always looking to stay ahead. We're more than just a distributor. Most companies are generally stay in their lane. With Henry Schein, we are in 3 different verticals. We are a blended distributor that is selling an amazing portfolio of products, of brands, and we also have our own brands as well. And we want to be the best option in that space for our clinicians, medical and dental. The second is around technology, and us being a technology organization. We own software organizations in the dental space. They're around practice management software. We are also in other aspects of technology. On the third aspect, we're in specialty as well as practice services. So what does that mean? So we provide implants to doctors. We provide endodontic products. We have clear aligners. And we also offer services of real estate. So if you were a dentist and looking to, sell your clinic, looking to move on, we can offer that services to help you.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
Really from the start of your journey as a student all the way to retiring.
What are you seeing with some of the new clinicians that are coming out? Because, I mean, practices have, the super high multiples. It's a crazy price. Like, it's hard to get into. Is that where you really see the benefits of that service you provide to say, hey, you're out of school, you're already in debt, and how do we get you in to own a practice if that's the route you choose? Yeah.
So I think that what I'm seeing from dentists, and I think that, and I don't want to put an age to it, because I think we have dentists from all ages looking to do different things. Some are looking to grow their one individual clinic, and we have some who are entrepreneur who want to open 3 to 10, and then we have owners that have like 25 to 50. So it really varies across the country. And our goal is to meet them where they want to be met and to support them in their journey. As far as, personalities, they're wildly different. 50% plus are women. And that's evolved over the years.
Yeah.
And the other factor I see is now dentistry is being seen holistically, and they're connecting oral health to your whole body, your systemic health, and more the connection of the two is important in our overall health. In fact, just today I went to an office, Beehive Dental. Shout out to Beehive in Oakville. Incredible doctor. Dr. Ali, he is taking dentistry to a whole new level of care. And I mean, I wouldn't even say spa-like. I would say just really customer-centric or patient-centric and looking at the small details. When you go to a dentist, what's your first reaction? Do you want to go to a dentist?
No one's coming in excited.
Right. So
it's not generally not I'm excited to be here and happy. Some weirdos, including my wife, she loves getting her teeth cleaned. She's like, it's relaxing. It's great. But
so most people would not say that.
No.
And so walking into the door of how he set up this clinic and how the team plays a role in that patient experience is extremely thoughtful, to the level of getting even a warm wipe when you wrap up your hygiene clinic, to this is the first, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like a mask for under your eyes. So you have dark circles. It helps reduce that. And I asked him, like, well, why are you doing all this? He's like, I just want them to feel comfortable. I want them to feel like welcome. And to a point where in this office, people stay before and after to do some work. So it just shows how I feel like it's important, the experience that we're providing to our patients, our customers. You have to work harder for that dollar. And I think that's one of the big takeaways, that it's just not easy out there anymore post-COVID. And you're going to have to work really hard to differentiate yourself in this marketplace where there's less loyalty. And that's okay. But you have to earn that right. And that's what I see here today, is that as a team, we understand how important our clinicians are to our business, whether they're medical or dental, and the role they play to provide to their patients. And the more we have that mindset of looking at their patient's eyes, to the clinician's eyes, to our business, and working backwards, the more we'll be relevant in how we support them. And that's how Henry Schein has set up their business, is around their total business. Where does that dentist or medical practitioner spend their time, and where do they spend their dollars, and how can we remove the barriers that exist for them to make their lives more efficient and more effective?
That's such a good story, and I think that's a number one thing that every business needs to look at, is what is the experience of the customer, because nothing is not competitive anymore for the most part.
Yeah.
People's dollars are getting more and more spread thin in this current economic environment, and when I have 10 options within a 5-minute drive.
Yep.
I don't care what industry you're in. It is about what are people feeling when they're there and when they leave. Was that good, bad, or indifferent? And you don't want to be indifferent or bad, right?
You nailed it. It's the how. Are you explaining to them the how? And I'll go back to that example of the dental clinic. They show your treatment plan, the exact details of how your teeth were when you first walked in as a new patient, and they track the success of it. And they provide that sort of statement or that update annually to show how you've progressed. I'll go even a step further. They show the pre-teeth, if you were going to get a filling done, what it looks like pre, during the tooth opened up, and post.
Come on.
And it's stored for the patient to see after the procedure's done. And so that's an example of the how. How are you showing the value to your patient? And I think it's the same thing in business. And at Henry Schein, I think we could even do better. We could. I walked out of there and saying, you know what? If we're going to build a new office in the future, let's do the pre, the during, and the post for every client, and provide that as a keepsake for them when they do a Henry Schein build with us. So I think there's opportunities for us to level up, and I think every one of us is on this journey to level up our own personal side of ourselves as well as our business.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that story. The other question I had is how do you take a story like that that's impactful, I don't care what industry you're in, and share that with other clinicians in or outside the industry to say, hey, here's a cool best practice. Here's a new experience. Make it your own.
Chris, I'm doing it right now. I would say I think we don't often compliment others as much as we could, and provide gratitude. So I personally, I think that you're right. We need to do more of that as a society. It's okay to share something great about somebody and call it out. So I think that he just exuded this, and I think to your point, we all as a society can actually share some positivity.
For sure.
I generally live that life. I'm happy-go-lucky, positive, and that's how I try to be. And I hope it spreads with the people that I connect with. But we can all do better.
That's amazing. Hey, from the I'm called the eternal optimist, so
Okay.
I love it. Yeah, I think it's and again I'll take the downfalls of it, but I think it's someone needs to be inspiring and thinking bigger and positivity. I mean, especially again in
Life's too
today's
short.
there's a lot of challenge in the world right now. I think life is too short.
Yeah.
Tell me about self-care. You've got a crazy busy job, now a demanding role that involves travel, probably a lot longer hours than maybe a traditional role. How do you manage that?
I would say I wasn't very good at it before. And I've been more mindful of that for the last couple of years. And so some things that I do now are some sort of table stakes. One is, everybody talks about it, is your physical what are you doing physically, and whatever that passion is for yourself. For me, it's gym. I do play hockey on occasion. I want to play more, but floor hockey, that is. And,
nice.
And those are my two physical activities.
And what's your routine? Morning gym? Do you have a gym at home, or you go to the gym?
I'm up let's call it just before 6, and I'm in the gym by 6:15.
Awesome.
And if I don't do it in the morning, it ain't going to happen. So that's sort of my own personality. And I love tennis. I love all sports. Having a son who's 11 years old and my daughter who's 14, pretty active as far as, either drop-offs or playing sports with them. And I realize how important that physicality is. And then also the self-care is mental as well. And so mentally, I think I could do a better job. I'm doing more reading on audiobooks. I've gotten a yoga mat. Haven't got to the yoga studio yet. My other guilty pleasure we and I were talking about before was enjoying a cigar.
Absolutely.
And it's really about actually the conversation and less about the tobacco. And it forces you to just slow down. And in a busy role like we all play, as a head of function, you need an opportunity to just unwind. And whatever that is, for me, it's an occasional cigar once in a while.
That's great.
Yeah.
Outside of YPO, who are your go-to people to just, share, get support, mentors, whatever you want to call them?
You know what? I would say being a young dad, this is still foreign to me, but I'm making it an important part of who I am, is playing a role where I'm building a relationship and bond with the kids. I'm struggling. It doesn't work all the way because most of these kids have one-word answers to you. But trying to build a relationship where they are equally a part of your journey. And so sharing what I'm doing at work, getting their thoughts on it, is something that I'm starting to do more of.
That's
and
awesome.
I would say friends. I have friends across the country, and staying in touch with them. And some of them are actually part of YPO now as a result of our conversations. But we try to do a guys trip annually, usually around sports. So historically, it's been about U.S. Open, and we're going to Mexico City, not related to sports this time around, but it's something different.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you. Great support network.
Yeah.
How did parenting change you as a leader?
Yeah, it really exposes you.
Yes,
I would say
in everything.
Yeah, it does. And there's the elements of your upbringing, how your parents brought you up will play a role in how you parent. That's natural. But I've realized that, maybe perhaps the side of me where we talked about, if someone is not all in, how do I show up? I can be a bit directive. I find that same thing with the kids. So when they're not putting their 100% effort, I get a bit directive. And I become my dad. So I feel like that's an opportunity that I'm still working on, is really asking what and how questions rather than telling them what to do.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
I always, again, you're in a role that's so different from a role I've been in. I just think it's incredible, and again, the amount of people, and maybe it's the same and different, in both ways. But how far ahead do you think strategically?
Yeah, I naturally think 3 to 4 to 5 years out. From a planning perspective, our business is strategically thought through 3 years in increments. As a business team, we are planning a year out. But my natural mind is always thinking just as much as I'm thinking ahead, I'm thinking at this very moment.
Sure.
And so I don't have a secret answer to that, but other than it's naturally innate in me that I toggle between the two quite regularly.
What's the 1 or 2 things keeping you up at night?
I would say, loyalty is something that is still diminishing. It still exists in our industry, and the tie to relationship. It's just come down a few pegs. As you become more transparent and it becoming more about e-commerce, you're no longer having a face-to-face conversation with the ordering that's happening on a day-to-day basis. So you have to be purposeful. You have to be intentional when you're walking into providing support to your clinician. So you got to be impacting, what we talk about is the 3 pillars of dentistry, if we're talking dental versus medical. One, we're either playing a role in their production, or we're playing a role within their team, or we're supporting their need to manage their overhead. So if we are able to support them in 2 out of the 3 areas, generally we have a loyal, happy customer. But what keeps me up is that the reality is that the full service model of providing technicians to professionals that are in office with specialists, we're being compared against to e-commerce only organization that don't offer that full service.
It's not the same.
And I think that's the challenge. And I think the challenge is how do you stay relevant? How do you stay in the mindset of your clinicians or customer in a way that is meaningful to them? And I think that is the hard work we have in front of us to be intentional, to be customer facing. Because post-COVID, the natural inclination for most people is to do everything remotely. Sure. And ultimately, I think there's a consequence to that, and we in our business have to be in front of our customers and adding value, and that's how I see our future moving forward.
How do you drive that? Because I agree. I mean, post-COVID, the world changed as far as let's talk about like field sales, and we see this in our industry too. It's people are not in the office as much. People are busy and have multiple roles and multiple titles sometimes that they're doing. How do you get your field sales staff how do you meet the client where they are? Because for some people, they don't want to see anyone. If you're checking that box and supporting them, they don't want to do that. How do you manage that and coach?
So I recently had that same conversation with a millennial, top rep. He was someone I hired in BC. And he said the same thing a couple of years ago. He's like, I don't need to go to the office anymore. I do all my work in the evening where I meet the doctors. But something that I flagged for him is how important the inside staff was and how they play a role to support the clinician. And so you have to have that right balance of knowing that each part of the stakeholder that plays a role in that clinician, including our suppliers, have to be met. And occasionally that means meeting them in person.
Yeah. But
you said a key thing. You need to understand your client. You need to understand where they want to be met. But no one can tell me that's 100% remote and I will never need to meet them in person, because at some point, something is going to be more shinier and you are no longer going to be the flavor of the month. And you need to be understanding that it takes hard work, and that means more work than what you were doing before. It might mean slightly different. Being more responsive post-COVID, I would imagine the expectation of someone texting you back quickly is greater than what it was pre-COVID. So 100%, it's been a challenge transforming the organization to see that adding value, what used to be important to a clinician 5 years ago, is ever evolving. It's not going to stop. Change has already happened.
Yeah.
It's not changing. It's already happened, and it's going to be continuous. So we need to continually be on that journey with them. And I do think that depending on where the dentist is or the medical doctor is in their own journey and understanding what's important to them, it may evolve. So I think it's something that it's a challenge as a leader. It's finding the right talent that meets the need of the community that you serve.
Yeah, that's a great point. Had a lot of conversations lately in our business on as much as people will. It's also, I think, a default is, hey, you get in the habit of not seeing someone or not having the FaceTime. I mean, this today is not the same as you and I on a screen, right?
Yeah.
So I think we can all appreciate that, hey, as much as people can say, it's not my first pick or whatever, I think it's also, field sales and the team and business development need to make sure that they're finding ways to, at some point get in front where applicable, because you can't replace that interaction. It's you and I can both agree on that.
I could only add to that is that I also think about there is a omni-channel approach to meeting your customers, and I think you need to do all of those things. So whether it's e-commerce, whether it's social media content, whether it's a inside sales rep contacting the account, or the customer care person answering the phone, you need to look at all of those aspects of who touches that customer and how do we communicate with them and how we need to level up.
And stay top of mind.
Yeah.
Right. It's amazing. What are you most excited about as you look into new role, opportunities for Henry Schein?
Yes, when I think professionally, I would say learning from two great businesses and how we can support one another. And I really firmly believe that there are synergies between those businesses and the Canadian business. And healthcare is universal. There's, for example, Brazil in many ways is ahead in some aspects of, let's call it smile design and implantology. And in Canada, there are aspects we're ahead. So we can learn from each other and support one another. So I'm really excited about learning and being exposed to something new. Personally, I would say the journey that I'm on with the kids. I'm firmly excited, even though it's going to be a challenge, is how do you maintain a relationship? I'm not saying I want to be best friends with them, but build a relationship where I'm the best version of myself as their parent, where we're building a bond with one another and we're growing together while having some fun along the way. So how to make that tangible, still TBD, but that is the road for me, success, and for 2025 is, having some probably moments where I'm setbacks. I've already lost all my hair, so there's not much more left.
Hey, you look great, man.
So, but I look forward to just continually on that journey and that bond with them.
Yeah, parenting is, I said, I'm a new parent, relatively new, 3.5 and 1, thank you. But it's the most challenging and rewarding job, so far. So I'll have lots to learn from you along the way with a couple little kids, but that's really exciting. How do we support Henry Schein? How do we find you? How do we stay in touch?
So I'm located here right here in Toronto. I go between the two offices in Toronto and Niagara-on-the-Lake. I'm on the website. You can reach out to me anytime. I'm always available. I love to meet new people and learn from you. So hopefully you had an opportunity to get to know me a bit more, and I also feel like let's spread the love, let's spread gratitude, let's spread a bit of positivity, and all of us be champions of that positivity.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. It was an absolute pleasure. Again, I learned so much today about you. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, and I appreciate making the time. There's so much to your story, and I'm really excited to watch as your journey unfolds, and watch your path along the way. Yeah,
I appreciate you. Appreciate you including me here in this journey. I told you this before. This is my first podcast, so
nice.
I'm excited to be here, and look forward to your journey ahead with your new podcast as well.
Thanks, Prashant. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.